That's insane. I already pay so much money for rent. It's already like half my paycheck. Like, that's just ridiculous.
I'm currently in a 1-bedroom and a den. This is technically a basement, and I'm paying close to $2,000 for it.
Canadians are suffering a severe rental affordability crisis. As an outsider looking in, it's astonishing and worrying to see citizens squeezed so hard. Rents have skyrocketed, leaving hard-working folks barely able to afford housing. In this video, we'll break down how Canada has got here and why it's so troubling. We'll also share constructive solutions. But first, get comfy as we dive into this rental madness gripping Canada. Stay tuned until the end, where we'll share tips to shelter your finances if you plan to move to Canada. This housing crisis affects all, so please watch until the finale and share with struggling Canadians. Now, let's begin.
Rental markets are overheating in Canada's most expensive cities, and prices have soared 23% in the Greater Toronto area in the past year.
Canada has a dire rental affordability emergency. Rents spiked 30 to 50% in major cities, with even small towns hit. Low vacancy leaves renters helpless against landlord gouging. This human impact is devastating. Homelessness has quadrupled to over 750,000 people, while employed individuals now live in cars.
Key workers and essential workers, paramedics, police, fire, teachers, and nurses, if they can't afford to live in Toronto, the hospitals won't be able to staff in terms of both medical staff and support staff, the cleaners and the custodial staff and the orderlies that keep hospitals going. So there are effects right across the labour market and across the economy that really do affect the capacity of a city to function.
It didn't have to be this way. Years of policy failures created a housing shortage and priced out tenants. We'll examine how Canada reached this point and what it means going forward. The dashing but misguided Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, announced limited measures like the 2022 Housing Accelerator Fund, the 2020 Rapid Housing Initiative, and the 2021 National Housing Co-Investment Fund. However, experts criticize these programs as woefully inadequate given the massive shortage.
Since 2019, the average rent in Canada has gone up and down, but rose by nearly 10% last year. And in the last 3 months, rent increased by an average of more than $100 per month.
The stats are shocking. Average rents jumped 32% in Toronto and 38% in Vancouver over just 2 years. One-bedroom units now cost a back-breaking $2,620 and $2,988 in those cities. It's wildly out of control. Our hearts go out to struggling Canadians.
According to Rentals.ca, in Canada, the asking rent has gone up almost 2% monthly, which is just under 10% per year to reach $2,117 in August.
Worse, vacancy rates are incredibly low, 1 to 2% across cities, removing any tenant bargaining power. With rents skyrocketing, there are literally no other options. And the human impact is tragic. Homelessness has quadrupled to over 750,000 people, the size of a city like Seattle. Employed individuals now live in vehicles just to get by. This is a national emergency.
This economist sees 3 factors overheating rental markets: weak rent control, a lack of supply, and the proliferation of landlord investors.
For decades, affordable housing construction kept pace with robust government subsidies and strong renter protections. But misguided policy changes eroded that system even as the population boomed. Construction of purpose-built rentals slowed tremendously. Instead, small-scale investors purchased properties to flip or rent out for quick gains. But this backfired when their variable rate mortgages spiked, leaving negative cash flows. Now they're raising rents to cover their own growing costs. So much for middle-class prosperity through real estate.
Such a supply and demand issue that is almost unfathomable to think when we'll be able to get out of it.
Shockingly, leaders choose now to dramatically ramp up immigration. Don't misunderstand, immigration is fine in principle, but should Canada welcome another 500,000 permanent residents annually before securing adequate homes? The results speak for themselves. Tent cities popped up on campuses as student housing evaporated.
Here's the dilemma. It's a chicken and egg scenario. Canada desperately needs more people to build homes, but the workers coming here need homes too.
Experts state Canada needs 3.5 million additional homes by 2030 just to catch up to demand. But at the current pace of construction, that timeline is 50 years away. Without major course correction, this rental crisis may never end. So what can be done? The fix will take time, but progress starts with some smart steps at multiple levels. The government should consider strong policies, such as 1. Tie immigration to housing capacity, with focus on affordable rentals. 2. Limit the investor market and incentivize purpose-built rentals. 3. Loosen zoning laws and build fees so more projects are viable. 4. Phase out rent control exemptions and cap increases to inflation. 5. Implement vacancy taxes. Tax property owners who allow units to sit empty to discourage housing speculation. 6. Strengthen rent control laws. Limit how much landlords can raise rents year over year on existing tenants. 7. Provide rent assistance. Expand eligibility and increase rental subsidies for low-income tenants struggling with high rents. 8. Protect against reno-evictions. Limit landlords' ability to evict tenants under the guise of major renovations. 9. Prohibit rental bidding wars. Ban landlords from selecting tenants based on highest rent bid to limit overbidding. 10. Improve tenants' rights. Strengthen eviction protections. Require longer notice periods. Limit damage deposits. 11. Tax multiple property ownership. Add progressive taxes for owning 3+ properties to discourage mass purchasing. 12. Fund social housing programs. Government-funded housing development focused on low-income and vulnerable groups. The key is supporting policies that increase rental supply, improve tenant affordability and protections, and limit housing speculation. A multi-pronged approach is likely needed to address this complex issue. With the proper nudges, Canada can again shelter its people. But it requires political courage. Leaders must ignore lobbyists and put citizens first. One hopes rational policies will prevail. While pushing leaders on policy reforms, Canadians can also take some steps for short-term relief. Lobby local city and provincial governments to implement recommended solutions, like tying immigration to housing capacity. Young people can consider house hacking by getting roommates or renters to afford payments. Families can avoid unnecessary moves if they lock in lower rent rates before spikes. Relocating to smaller cities, like Edmonton and Winnipeg, can provide cheaper rents and higher incomes than Toronto or Vancouver. Make use of free government-funded courses in BC and Ontario to increase skills and shift into higher-paying careers. Convert mortgages to fixed rates to stabilize payments. When purchasing a home, assume the seller's low-rate mortgage with a lawyer's guidance. Share costs by forming collective households with other families. Strategic relocations, smart financing, skill building, and legal tactics can provide short-term relief, but systemic change is vital for lasting affordability. Please suggest additional solutions in the comments. The outlook remains bleak for Canada's renters currently. The country cannot continue this way. It violates human dignity. Canadian leaders must look past political differences to enact solutions. Please share your thoughts on housing policies below. What ideas could change the game? While Prime Minister Trudeau has taken some steps on housing, experts argue his plans lack the boldness and speed needed to confront this crisis. Without addressing the core supply shortage, Canada's rental affordability challenges may continue. If you learned something, tap the like button. Circulate this video widely so more individuals understand the need for change. Let's build momentum toward affordable living. This affects all in Canada. We appreciate you watching and look forward to seeing you in the next video soon.